What you missed on Midday with Howie Lim on Money FM 89.3.
This is Money FM 89.3 and a segment we like to call Mind Your Business, where we explore the SME sector here in Singapore, which powers half our economy. The SME sector here encompasses 99% of businesses here and employs 70% of our workforce. So what are the challenges this sector faces in today's volatile business environment, and how can it use technology to stay ahead and be competitive? We speak with business owners, industry experts, and also business leaders to get their insight. Today, it's Abhinav Goswami, who's Vice President of Deskera, a leading software provider. Abhinav, thanks so much for joining us today. Briefly explain Deskera's product, though. What would you say you sell?
Without using very heavy jargon, if I want to tell it, it's basically a business management software which allows every business processes or every business operation in a typical SME to be automated, run on a system, and have a single point of view for all stakeholders, be it the bosses, be it your operations managers. This is delivered on the cloud, device agnostic, at a very competitive price point and focused on an SME in the region. I think that we have more than 20,000 customers globally now. So, we are, in some respect, the biggest SaaS/cloud companies out of Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And we compete with the big wigs. This is a Singaporean company which is making waves right now internationally as well.
20,000 businesses you furnish worldwide at this point. How are you tackling, though, the large number of cloud illiterates in the workforce? I think recently AWS did a survey that said, I think only 2 in 5 employees are comfortable working with processes that are cloud-based.
Yeah, I think what you have to understand is, I think technology is not a choice anymore. I think it's a necessity. I don't know whether somebody has heard this, but there was a very famous saying which Mark Anderson wrote, which said, "Software is eating the world." Right. And which is so true. I think from an SME perspective, and I want to give an example which I see is when our world is getting disrupted right now with new technologies and everything, our lifestyles have changed. You and me know the way we used to live our life 5-7 years ago is completely changed. Now, if we look at it from an SME market perspective, their world is disrupted right now, both from the internet giants and global MNCs. They are hit at the top line at their revenue level because, I'll give you an example. The normal hawker, he used to have a captive audience near an HDB. Now with all these food ordering apps, guys can order from anywhere and his business is disrupted, right? People who were selling computer hardware out of those Semblim squares and everything, now people can straight order from Amazon. So their sales are impacted right now. That's the revenue part which is impacted. Now looking at the bottom line part, the operational part. There is manpower challenges. People know what jobs are available, what salaries are paid. There are compliance costs and everything. So the world is getting changed, and it says software is eating the world, which is enabling global organization and internet giants to change the market landscape. And SMEs don't have a choice. I think a lot of SMEs realize this, but
a lot of them don't seem to either.
I think it's disrupt to avoid being disrupted. If you don't change, you will eventually be replaced, right? We look at the taxi hailing thing, the food ordering app, which is very, very common. But if you go in the B2B level where people, even SMEs are now not sourcing from their friends and family, but they are globally going to the Alibabas and the Taobaos of the world and getting orders from there. It's getting very internationalized. So the SMEs have that challenge. And with Singapore, just taking an example, we have manpower challenges. Hiring people are difficult. Productivity is a national issue. We need to increase our productivity going forward just to remain competitive. In my view, a lot of SME bosses get it. See, SMEs are very emotional businesses in the sense they really they do it what they like. And it has to be an educational process which is 360-degree from organizations like us, radio stations like yours, the print publications and everything. And we see the changes happening. We have more than 1,000 clients in Singapore, which has taken our software.
When it becomes this dire, as you're putting it, it's a necessity. It's no longer a nice to have. What do you think the resistance is then from SMEs? Is it still, I think it might be a large capital outlay in order to digitize? And the manpower that you were talking about too.
I think it's the iPhone thingy. Basically, the smartphones, when they initially came, people, not everybody, like my dad didn't use a smartphone for a long time.
High price point, etc.
High price point,
yeah.
and they thought it is very, very complicated. I think we can draw parallels from that example. But having said that, I think from a price point perspective, that's where the cloud software comes into play, because this is not a one-time big fees. You can pay monthly on and consume as you go. Think of it like your
no longer sort of subscription based.
Like a subscription
I pay
based.
you for a month, even though I might not utilize all of it. This is a pay as you use.
So you have a subscription, and we come at a very competitive price point. And I think with Singapore government helping us, there are grants available for people to consume the software. And I don't want to use this pay as you, as you said, the subscription word, because that confuses people. But it's basically, it's a monthly charge which you pay for using the software. You don't have to shell up money, and you can stop anytime you want. It doesn't work for you. That's what the beauty of cloud and SaaS is.
Sounds good. Better than, you stick them to a 2-year contract and then they're just struggling for 2 years, right? What about initially when Deskera started out? The cloud space was not so utilized. What were some of the challenges you faced initially? The space was just emerging. How did you tackle them?
I think it again goes back to people think of it as more complicated than
it actually is.
Than it actually is, right? Most SMEs do run these processes. It's not that we are inventing something new what they are not used to. We still help them manage their customer list, issue them quotations, issue POs, run their payroll. But they have been either doing it pen and paper or using Excel. Now, anybody with a little bit of common sense will realize that that's not a scalable process.
Hey, I know some businesses who still use the abacus.
I don't know about that. But and you have to grow. So imagine you have one office, you had a good few years, you want to open another office either in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, or even in Singapore. You have a couple of outlets. Now, as an SME boss, how do you know who came to office? How do you know what goods are in office A versus office B, or warehouse A versus warehouse B? So that education took a little while. So when Deskera came in initially, I think that's where we show users. And another point, I think that's something which I missed out, is SME bosses don't wake up thinking that I want to consume software today. I will buy software today. They are very driven by outcomes. They require business outcomes. So we don't sell the software as a software, but we sell solutions which drive outcomes. So we tell you that, listen, you have 50 staff in 3 offices. How do you make sure that you manage attendance and you can have a look at it? How do you make sure your payroll is running properly? How do you make sure that you know every quotation which is given out by their salespeople? And this can all be automated with a single point of view, which he can work on his iPad and have a look very quickly.
So we're talking ERPs and CRMs, right?
Exactly. And that's the beauty of Deskera, because we have an integrated suite, which is basically from a CRM system to an ERP system to an HRMS system and a project management and an LMS. Now, not saying that these individual softwares are not available, but if you can buy one from a vendor A, one from a vendor B, they don't talk to each other. Then you have to build things. With Deskera, the beauty is everything comes integrated. So the moment a PO is issued, that goes into your financial statements. When your payroll runs, that goes into your financial statements, right? When you're taking a new project from a project management, your HR system tells you who is on leave, who is not. To the point that, and I'll take you a live example, I have a customer who services lifts. And a lift is something which runs, unless it breaks down. So he has to send service engineers to check. Now, how does that SME guy knows that does my service engineer really went there? He used Deskera, where this guy can go and geotag himself in the CRM system, so he knows he actually went to that location, right?
Mistrust, oh dear.
It's not it's the reality of doing business.
Right. Would you say it's easier than, say, if an SME came to you digital free and employed all of the systems that you had, so that they had that one look glance at everything, versus somebody whom you said earlier might have certain automated features already, but they don't talk to each other?
I think most of the SMEs, that's the good news and the bad news, because SMEs don't have the legacy of old systems. So that's not rip and replace. It's usually new. There is a little bit of an effort which has to come from the boss saying that I have to train my workforce. And this is not too complicated. This is simple forms. We have an Excel kind of functionality which works like Excel. So most of the SMEs who come to us, so there's 2 kind of guys. I think 60 to 70% are people who has any systems. They have grown and they are at a point where they cannot scale anymore with the existing systems, right? And the 40% has some kind of a systems, but they have outgrown that system because that's only a single premise. They have multiple offices, or their inventory has grown too big, or they have opened a new their employee count is so much that they can't run their payroll, or they want to do some appraisal management and things like that, which their current software does not allow them. So 60-40, I would say.
So we're at the point, Abhinav, you think that you will go out of business if you don't?
I would even make a bolder statement. I would say if you're not have some kind of a technology, you will go out of job in 15 years.
15 years, that's quite optimistic.
Yeah.
I've heard, next year, a couple months.
Not trying to be fear-mongering here, but I think, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you see the way we did normal processes, like, as I said, ordering food, ordering a cab, doing shopping, that has fundamentally changed in front of our eyes in less 10 years. And this is just gaining space with blockchain, artificial intelligence, Google knowing everything, Facebook controlling things. So this is a question of when rather than whether.
Right. How is Deskera keeping up to date then? Because we've also talked about how technology changes at the flip of a coin, at the click of fingers. And for an SME, let me put the question to you, for them, in that, should I adopt this when it could change very well in the next couple of months? And then what do I need to do? I need to switch to a new system. I need to upgrade, etc.
That's a good question. Actually, that's where the beauty of cloud software comes. I'll tell you a quick example right now. I mean, everybody knows the GST, the tax, was just abolished in Malaysia. To the extent I heard anecdotally that McDonald's was writing the receipts by hand because they can't sign GST. Now, with a system like Deskera, we make sure on day zero you are compliant. We will make sure the latest technologies are, I gave an example of compliance here, but even from a technology, we make sure the artificial intelligence is delivered to you, the blockchains are delivered to you, and you don't need to
able to update on the fly.
On the fly,
okay.
Right? And I come back to the point that businesses are more about outcomes at an SME level than about software. They just want their system to run and be on par or better than their competition, which is global now, as I said. So using a cloud-based software like us helps you to reduce all these disruptions because we take care of all the changes.
How are you keeping the lights on at Deskera then? When stuff is cheaper for other people, are you absorbing the costs it takes to run them?
It's an economies of scale. And I think as 100,000 users and like 20,000 businesses globally, we can do changes on the fly. We do get economies of scale. We work with every big vendor from Microsoft to Google to everybody at an enterprise level. So what you are getting is a top-of-the-line product with great domain expertise delivered at a fraction of a cost because it's well distributed. To help you understand why is a ride-hailing app free? Because they work at a mass level, right? That's the way to think about it. I'm just simplifying it for an SME owner to think that why are we able to deliver at a cost and deliver it? Because we had huge client base.
Talk to us about your view on the SME space here. Are we getting up there? Are we realizing that, things are getting dire? Again, we move into the depressing area.
It's, as I said, I think the world is changing right now. Singapore, as you know, in most studies is one of the most digitized, internet-connected studies. The Singaporean consumer is becoming smarter.
And yet, though, we have the older generation, like my mom and your dad as well, who refuse to touch the smartphone. So there is that disconnect too.
Right. But I think the information is becoming at people's fingertip. People can compare prices now. They can order things. There are on-demand courier and ride services, which makes everything easier. And then it's getting internationalized. If you look at every global company from Alibaba to Lazada, and everybody is here, right? So I think in Singapore, the SMEs are facing some headwinds around that. There is no two doubts about it. And that's true around Southeast Asia. It's not even Singapore. I think the only two ways, if you look at from a business thing, there's only two ways the businesses can improve their competitiveness. One is to increase productivity by employing more software processes. And software is your biggest ally in that. And secondly, to internationalize. And that's where a software like us comes through because we are present in whole of Southeast Asia. So if you open an office in Malaysia, you're compliant and up and running on day zero. You open in Philippines, you can run your payroll on day zero if you use Deskera because we allow you, if you are a Singapore customer, and you can just come to us and say, listen, I'm opening office in Malaysia. So we'll say, hey, here we go. Here is your accounts. Here is your payroll. Just put in your data and you're up and running.
Some time saved, of course.
And a lot of hassle saved.
Expansion plans for Deskera, though?
I think we are present. We have
Sounds like world domination already.
I think, as I said, we are already the biggest SaaS/cloud company out of Southeast Asia. I think we wanted to remain focused on SME, as you pointed out. I think more than 50% of economic output is given by the SMEs, more than 90% of employment. We have 11 offices, 12. I think we opened one, and presence in 5 countries. I think recently we opened up in US, and I was involved, and I think we are getting good traction there because we are present in whole of Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines. The problems of SMEs globally are the same. It's not that an Indonesian SME is facing a little different way to what is a Singaporean SME is facing. It's just a way how you solve it, how inducing. I think Singapore provides a great launchpad for us, but I think we will be the most. We want to be the software of choice for SMEs going forward globally.
You can check them out at Deskera.com. That is Deskera.com. Abhinav Goswami is the Vice President there. Abhinav, thank you so much for joining us today.